Do you see new global alliances forming right now? Who is moving closer, and what does that mean for Ukraine, for the West?
So when I talked about individuals, I also spoke about this very interesting new tendency. Like there is an individual like Elon Musk, who is now like a state within a state. So he alone could probably, if he wanted to wage a war, because he has enough money to do that or support some country in a war. He was directly involved with the White House in the war in Ukraine because of Starlink. So when the individual is so powerful, I mean, we spoke before about it. There is this theory of like new medievalism coming back today, that basically it's like there's a Holy Roman Empire and the popes, it's like in the Middle Ages or later. So today we get corporations and individuals who are as powerful as nation states, or some of them are more powerful than nation states. The alliances, as I said, I see in Europe, some countries, as I said, will not give up on Ukraine. So there may be more bilateral relations between, say, Poland and Ukraine, Baltic states and Ukraine, Scandinavian countries and Ukraine. I'm more worried about France and Germany because what's happening, Macron is extremely supportive of Ukraine today, but we don't know what's going to happen in France in 2027. If the right wing wins, and it's Le Pen's party now, there's another leader, a very young man, Bardella, very charismatic, it may completely change. All the aid may stop. So Europe could be divided. Germany so far seems to be pretty solid for the next 4 years. But yes, you could see these alliances in Europe forming like outside of NATO. Like, for example, the President Zelensky was just in Canada. Canada has a very historically rich Ukrainian community. I'm saying rich is big in a sense, like with rich history. So Canada is not going to give up. They're going to help. So that's what needs to be worked out, I think. I would look, if I was in the Ukrainian government, I would try to look more carefully in potential relations with South Korea and Japan, because they definitely don't have good relations with Russia, and Japan until today doesn't even have a peace treaty.
Right. Now, as far as I know, Ukrainian diplomats are working very closely with South Korea and Japan, and I think our connection will be closer eventually. Peter, you've studied empires. Is Russia still trying to win this war against Ukraine, or simply trying not to collapse?
So it's interesting you asked me that, because there was this famous French German journalist who, like after the annexation of Crimea, he said he was trying to express kind of understanding for Russia. And he says, you understand, without Ukraine, Russia ceases to be like a European country. It becomes exclusively an Asian empire. Not that they claim that they're Europe today. They don't want to be. They believe that they're unique, whatever, according to their Eurasianist ideology. But I do think it's both. So on the one hand, they realize that without Ukraine, they're losing so much in terms of their like imperial identity, because that's like Kyiv or Mykolaiv or Odessa. That's all what they consider historic Russia. That's why I think Putin will never be happy just with Donbass. Then they want Belarus, I think, too. So it's a mutual process. On the one hand, they don't want to lose their empire, but on the other hand, they want to bring back the smaller version of the Russian Empire. It's Malorussia, Novorossia, and Belarus. So they definitely don't want an addition. There is no fear that they would go to war, say, with Central Asian states or Azerbaijan, because I think they're very bigoted in terms of their religious beliefs. They don't want any Muslims, more Muslims as part of their country. So part of the Ukrainian project is also very racist, because they want more white, what they consider white people, to produce more babies for the Russian Empire, because the demographics are so bad. So it's both solving the demographic issue, it's restoring what they see as the historic Russian Empire, and it's saving it, yes, through force from potential disintegration. So it's definitely an imperial project, and I don't think they're hiding it anymore. They're saying it pretty openly.
Right. Peter, people keep saying Russia's economy is holding on. People and analysts, but holding on to what and for how long? I know you're not an economical expert, but
Right.
what is your take on that?
Well, I can tell you, I actually taught economy, but from international political economy, from a very sort of anthropological, ideological point of view. I actually believe that ideology plays an extremely important role in economic. Some Western economists think, like, for example, Friedman, it's all just pure economics determining everything. I think it's not true, because you look at the country like North Korea, Putin once said that even if they eat grass, they won't give up on their nuclear program. So Russia, to some degree, like I would say, if you produce enough like nationalist fever, which the propaganda and the government is pretty successful in accomplishing that in Russia, people still will support the war. And I think as long as it doesn't go directly to their houses, but it doesn't, because they still don't conscript too many people, and there are tons of people, as you know, who willingly go and sign the contracts with the Russian army. I think in the year of 2024, there was over 400,000 people who went and joined the Russian army just to go fight in Ukraine for money. So their economy, I mean, they're surviving. I, of course, can't go there anymore, and I haven't been there in like years now. But it seems to me that they're not dying. They're definitely not like North Korea. I mean, for the majority of Russian, it's still not a wealthy life, but we don't see any major protests, or we don't see like any major uprisings. So it can last, I think, for quite a long time. And they basically militarize their entire economy, and they are still pretty successful in selling their natural resources to India, to China, and unfortunately and shamefully, indirectly to European countries via India and China.
Which European countries?
Well, the UK, I think many of them still get, by different indirect routes, they get Russian oil and gas.
Yes.
I mean, they sell crude to India, then India sells it via third partners. So European countries definitely, not just Hungary. Hungary, of course, does it openly. They want to do it. That's their main motive. But even countries who support Ukraine, they still, I don't have exact data in front of me, which countries and what are the amounts, but still those deals still go on.
Right. And Ukraine's strike on Russian oil infrastructure used to sound impossible for us a year ago, for example. Now it's happening. Is this a real breakthrough, the moment Russia's safe rare stopped being safe?
So far, to me, it doesn't seem. Yes, I clearly see it as a good thing to happen, and of course, Ukraine should continue doing that. But I don't see so far the damage substantial enough for the people to revolt. So if there will be like no gas and gas station, I heard it can happen in several places. Yeah, maybe it will bring some results, but I still don't see the damage so far which could change the situation in the war. And you know, Putin, when he's pushed in the corner, he could just, I mean, like every time you do something towards Russia, the response is 5 times worse. And it's especially targeted in the Russian case. The Russians are targeting civilian infrastructure in Ukraine. I'm not very optimistic in this sense.
But what about, I mean, real poverty among soldiers and regions and families? Ever that stop a dictator, dictator Putin?
But you see what he does. He actually, who goes and signs the contracts with the Russian army? This is exactly very poor people. So imagine if you live in a small Siberian town or in Buryatia, and your monthly salary, I don't remember what rubles are worth now, but something an equivalent of $300 a month, say $400 a month. And out of a blue, you get like some regions paying equivalent is like 1,000,000 rubles and more. It's like 10, 15, $20,000 for just signing the contract. Then you get untaxed $2,000 to $4,000 like every month for fighting the war. So you leave your wife basically and the family with this money because those soldiers don't need money at the front line. So when you get killed, the family gets over an equivalent of over $100,000. So it's a war economy. It's just basically like a mercenary army. You would think, actually, I think Neil Ferguson a while ago called the Russian war a classic colonial war with a colonial army, because there are so many non-ethnic Russians who are fighting in this war. And Buryat, Tatars, so the people from the Northern Caucasus. And these are usually people who clearly go for pure economic reasons. So it's an opposite result. As long as they have cash and they're printing cash to give to these families, people are signing the contracts. So they're actually taking the poorest of the poor from Russia to go fight. And the rich stay home, and this is the horrible reality, and they support this war in their propaganda barrages and speeches and all of that.